our help to all who seek service from our office, to observe your divine laws, justice, and truth in all our transactions.
Protect us, Lord, from temptations. Do not let us take advantage of our position for personal gains and at the expense of others. Let us not enrich ourselves with property and money that rightfully belong to the citizens whom we pledge to serve and constantly remind us that honesty is still the best policy. That ill-gotten wealth cannot bring happiness in the end.
Grant us the strength to set the interests of the community above those of self, the interest of the nation above those of the community, and our fidelity to you above everything else.
Show us, Lord, how to turn our work into a ministry to our countrymen.
Lord, please bless our office and let honesty,
Peace
And respect for each other be our culture.
So good afternoon once again, everyone. Welcome to our virtual CKD Symposium. Before we jump right into the lecture session, let me go over first with our house rules for today's activity. For the duration of our symposium, we would like to remind you of the following house rules. Next po. Next po. So first is kindly please mute your microphone when not speaking to avoid background noise and to ensure continuity of the program. Use the raise hand function or the chat box if you would like to ask questions or share your thoughts. We will have an open forum for every after lecture for us to tend to your questions and concerns. Number 3, kindly wait to be acknowledged by the moderator before speaking. However, inulit ko nga po, we encourage everyone to maximize the chat box na lang po. We also encourage you to be respectful kapag pag-chat po tayo sa chat box and refrain from any side conversations or any distracting behavior or inappropriate messages. Let us maintain proper decorum in this online platform. Lastly, kindly accomplish the post-activity evaluation which will be provided at the end of the program. And also, please use your complete name upon filling out the forms for proper documentation and issuance of the e-certificate. So, yun po. We hope for your active participation in this symposium. With these guidelines in place, I think we are all confident that this symposium will be both meaningful and productive. Now that we are all oriented, I think we are ready to acknowledge our participants. So, in the chat box po, pwede po bang palagay kung saan po kayo nanggagaling? I think we have 1,000 plus na nag-register sa ating symposium, kaya nag-extend na lang po tayo sa Facebook Live natin. Can we please ask everyone to put in their organizations po? Kung saan po kayo nanggagaling? From Bicol region po ba? Or from outside Bicol region? So from Albay region, meron po ba tayo? Pa-thumbs up naman. Ayan, meron tayong marami from Albay. Yes. Sir Mark Joseph Marada. From Masbate Province, meron din po ba tayo? I think mostly from ang mga participants po natin is from outside Bicol region. So thank you po for joining our program. Sobrang far-reaching po talaga nitong symposium po. I'd like also to take this opportunity on behalf of Department of Health Legal Center for Health Development. We would like to extend our sincere gratitude to the Renal Nurses Association of the Philippines and the President, Ms. Mercedita Hoxon, for allowing us to be partners in this activity. So, ginat niya pa tayo ng free RENAP units. So, thank you so much. This recognition not only adds value to the continuous learning and professional growth of our nurses, but also you support significant impact ng raising concern natin, which is chronic kidney disease. So I think we can proceed with the opening remarks. So ladies and gentlemen, to formally open our program and to give us the latest updates on the regional CKD program, we are privileged to hear from our distinguished guest. Please welcome Dr. Raymond Martin A. Corpus, the Regional Program Manager of Chronic Kidney Disease Prevention and Control Program and the head of the Non-Communicable Disease Prevention and Control Cluster, for his opening remarks, as he will be sharing with us the milestones as well as the accomplishments and continuing efforts in the kidney disease prevention and control in our region. So, Dr. Corpus.
So magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Good afternoon. Mabatong hapon po sa ating lahat, no? Sa ating mga participants po, pakitaas ng inyong mga kamay. No? So on behalf of our OIC Regional Director, Dr. Rose Repilio, and the entire team of the CKD program, I warmly welcome you all to today's virtual CKD Symposium. Our focus this afternoon is on the kidney disease prevention and leptospirosis prophylaxis. So these are the two very timely and important topics po natin, no? Especially meron po tayong issue ngayon sa flood control, no? Sa pagbaha, no? Sabi nga nila, lahat po ay interconnected, no? Naniniwala po tayo ang kagawaran ng kalusugan sa social determinants of health, no? Lahat po ay nakakaapekto sa ating kalusugan, no? Ang konting pagnanakaw po sa ating budget ay nakakaapekto talaga, no, sa ating pang-araw-araw na pagkabuhay. So these very timely and important topics po, especially with the rising burden of the chronic kidney disease in our communities. So chronic kidney diseases po are on the rise, and it's only through continuous learning, just like this, and collaboration and preventive efforts po natin that we can effectively respond to this big challenge po, no? Tumataas na po ang ating CKD cases sa buong Pilipinas, pati din sa buong mundo. Is a burden po to all of us, no? And we are also greatly honored to be with our esteemed resource persons po today, Dr. Melissa Luna Antonio, the Philippine Society of Nephrology President po of the Bicol chapter, and Dr. Edgar Remonte, both respected nephrologists po in Bicol region and also the entire Philippines. So we will be sharing their knowledge po and expertise with us. We are truly grateful to all of you, our participants, who made time to join us today. No, due to the overwhelming interest po, dahil madami po ang almost 2K po ang ating registration. No, we could not accommodate everyone here in our Google Meet session. No, but we are happy to share that this event is also being broadcast live via Facebook po. Bicol ang DOH Bicol CHD po via the CMU unit po namin, no? But we're happy to share this also, that this event is also being broadcast live, no? To reach more our partners and stakeholders. Once again, maraming salamat po. Thank you very much for being here and for your commitment to kidney health. So let us have a fruitful and engaging session ahead. Dahil nga po sa bagong Pilipinas, bawat buhay daw po ay mahalaga, pero sa Chronic Kidney Disease Prevention and Control Program, bawat bato po natin ay mas mahalaga. Maraming salamat po.
So, ayun po thank you very much, Dr. Corpus, for that inspiring message and for setting the tone of today's learning session. Truly, these developments will surely help guide our collective actions moving forward. So, alam kong excited na kayo at na-delay na tayo dahil sa technical problem natin. But still, we will still proceed. And for the cream of the crop of our program, I would like to introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon. We are privileged to be joined by an esteemed professional whose dedication and expertise have made a significant impact in the field of nephrology. Our speaker is the president of the Philippine Society of Nephrology, Bicol Chapter. She is also the head of nephrology unit of the Bicol Regional Hospital and Medical Center. And with years of experience as a nephrologist, she continues to be a guiding force in advancing both medical practice and public health initiatives. Today, she will be sharing valuable insights on leptospirosis prophylaxis, a subject that is both timely and crucial in our shared advocacy for kidney disease prevention and control. Let us all give our warm of virtual applause to welcome our distinguished resource speaker, Dr. Melissa L. Antonio.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Doc.
Na-overwhelmed din ako na share screen na din ako. Grabe, 2,000 ang nag-register. Galing. First time ko po mag-share ng screen sa dito sa Meet. So, please bear with me lang po. Ay, nako. Okay, so mag-start na po tayo. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Corpus, for that wonderful introduction. And to Ma'am Catherine, salamat po. And to DOH-CHD5, thank you so much for inviting me. So today, I will be discussing about leptospirosis, especially the prophylaxis. So just to introduce myself, so I'm Dr. Melissa Tita Antonio. You can call me Dr. Leng. So I have a master's in hospital management. Ito po yung aking mga pinagdaanan. So actually marami din sa atin ngayon na kasama ko sa mga hospitals and dialysis centers. Okay, so anyway, going straight to my lecture. So the background of my lecture is about leptospirosis. So this is a disease caused by spirochete bacteria in the genus Leptospira. So 10 pathogenic species and more than 250 pathogenic serovars ang meron sa Leptospira, sa mga spirochete na bacteria. Now, this occurs worldwide, and it is more common in tropical or subtropical climates. So, syempre, nasa tropical country tayo, isa tayo sa mga countries na merong leptospirosis. And more than 1 million... yes, ma'am.
Excuse po. Doc, naka-freeze po yung camera niyo po.
Sorry?
Apa, naka-freeze yung camera niyo po, Doc. Apa, Doc.
Wait lang. Pumupunta dun sa ano ko eh. Wait lang, ma'am.
Doc, okay na po.
Ayan, ma'am. Okay na po ba?
Okay na po, Doc.
Naririnig niyo din po ako?
Apo, audible naman po kayo, Doc.
Okay, yan. Good. Okay. So, I'm sorry. This is my first time kasi to use this platform. Okay, so let's go back to the background. So, after more than 1 million cases occur worldwide, annually including almost 60,000 deaths. So, mataas din yung death rate ng leptospirosis. It occurs after a heavy rainfall or flooding in endemic areas, especially areas with poor housing and sanitary conditions. So sana po na nasagutan nyo yung questions about the leptospirosis. Okay, so this was taken from DOH na data po. So this was during 2017 and 2018 sa Philippines. Yung cases last 2018 was 5,232. So buong Philippines na po ito. Ang death is 505 patients. So percentage change daw in the 1 year is 71. So nag-increase siya ng 71 from 317 to 505. Okay, so itong sa baba na picture is specifically for 2022 and 2023. So makita natin itong nandito sa medyo lower side of the table, zoonotic diseases. Ginawa ko kasi, in-screenshot ko siya para makita na din natin yung year. So dito sa 2022 and 2023 data, 4,356 yung 2022, nag-increase ng 2023 to 6,057. So yung percent change is 39. So, ibig sabihin, this table just shows na increasing yung trend din. Mas marami ang nagkakaroon ng leptospirosis. Okay, next table naman is region-based. So, naka-rectangular yung na blue, dyan yung region 5. So, from 2022, may change din siya ng around 10%. Okay. Hindi lang, ito, 186 nag-increase to 216 cases in the whole region ng 2023. Okay, so how do we get this? The transmission is spread by the urine of infected animals. So makukuha natin siya sa rodents, dogs, livestock, pigs, horses, wildlife. So syempre dito sa Pilipinas, ang common is rodents. Meron din daw sa dogs, pero it's actually more common sa rodents tapos sa wildlife. Okay, so the bacteria can survive for weeks to months in the urine, contaminated water and soil. So syempre, makikita natin sa rodents, sila yung mga nasa wild. Kahit saan sila umiihi, hindi naman sila domesticated, hindi naman sila disciplined. So kahit saan sila nakikita. So their urine, pag naihi na nila, they can survive for weeks sa contaminated na water and soil. So people can be infected through direct contact with the urine or reproductive fluids from infected animals, or contact with urine-contaminated water, flood water, rivers, streams, sewage, and wet soil. So, importante dito sa atin, sa Pilipinas, kasi as we all know, lagi tayong may baha. Yun pala, meron din palang reason yung pagbabaha natin. So, let us expect in the next few years, kung hindi pa maayos yung flood control program dito sa ating bansa, and magko-continue pa yung floods sa atin. And unfortunately, sa mga ibang lugar na usually hindi naman binabaha, mas bumabaha sila ngayon. No? So important yung cleanliness ng ating area. And well, hindi lang naman din siya common sa floodwater, no? Pwede rin siya sa as we see sa wet soil. So saan yung mga wet soil? Mga farmland, yung mga gardeners, mga okay. Ingestion of food or water contaminated by urine or urine contaminated water. So important din tong malaman or to take note kasi ingestion of food or water. Kunyari kahit din sa flood, kunyari nabaha tayo, lumublob tayo kung saan, nainom natin yung contaminated water. So pwede rin tayong makakuha. Pwede ding matransmit through that yung leptospirosis. Okay, so paano nakakapasok sa katawan natin? It goes into our mucous membranes, sa conjunctiva, so sa mata, skin cuts or abrasions. So mga sugat. So hindi lang siya through the yung nai-intake, pwede rin siya sa skin cuts or abrasions. Human to human transmission is very rare but has been documented through sexual intercourse and breastfeeding. So rare daw siya, mababa naman yung rate niya. So rarely occurred through animal bites. So bihira naman daw na nakagat through the rodent kasi nga mas makikita siya sa urine. Yung urine, yung contaminants na galing sa urine. Okay. So high-risk activities can include wading, swimming, or boating in floodwater or fresh water. And direct contact with animals and activities that can lead to skin abrasions and water or soil exposure, such as clearing, brush, trekking, and gardening. So hindi lang yung exposure natin doon is makikita through wading in floodwater, pero yun nga, kung mag-trekking, kunyari mag-mountain climbing or gardening, mga farming, mga ganon, pwede rin yung makuha. So very important, when we see a patient na kunyari may fever or anything, important yung history, anong nangyari, anong ginawa, kasi it is very common sa ating country, which is a tropical country. So this is just a picture of para mas maintindihan natin kung paano nakukuha yung leptospirosis. So here we start from the top. So we have the reservoir host. Anong ibig sabihin ng reservoir host? So yung host, this reservoir hosts are animals that harbors or nourishes a pathogen, a harmful organism, and serves as sources of infection. So actually, yung may pakana ng leptospirosis is the Leptospira nga na species. So eto siya, yung parang spiral looking na line dito sa left. This is the bacteria. So Leptospira bacteria siya na nai-infect niya yung mga host, reservoir host. So pagka nainom or nakain, nakapunta sa katawan ng reservoir host, yung Leptospira, maiihi niya to. So may infect ng Leptospira yung rodent or yung daga. Tapos iikot din sa circulation ng daga yon. Maiihi nung daga yung Leptospira. Now, pagka infected na yung ihi or urine, pupunta na siya, di ba? So, kunyari sa rodent, naihi niya na in everywhere, kung saan-saan. Pagka na-expose tayo dun sa contaminated na flood water or urine or whatever, dun na mag-multiply sa katawan natin. So, this goes through splashing contaminated urine into the eyes, so swallowing contaminated water or food, tapos dun din sa exposed open wounds, cuts, to contaminated water soil. So dito na pupunta sa atin sa katawan. Okay? So pagka na-expose tayo, what happens? So the incubation period is within 2 to 30 days. So ibig sabihin, pag na-infect tayo or na-expose tayo, yung incubation period niya is what we call, yung parang nagmumultiply siya sa katawan. So within 2 to 30 days, hindi pa natin maramdaman yung illness. Most illnesses occur 5 to 14 days after exposure. So kunyari na-expose tayo ngayon, hindi pa natin mararamdaman agad. Pwedeng nag-incubate pa lang siya sa katawan natin. And then kung talagang clinically mag-manifest yung leptospirosis sa katawan natin, 5 to 14 days after exposure. So earliest is 5 days, tapos latest exposure is 14 days. So kunyari, September 1, na-infect tayo. Ang latest na mag-occur yung illness is 14 days. So 2 weeks upon last exposure. So most infections are thought to be asymptomatic. Meron cases din asymptomatic. Approximately 90% of clinical illness present as a non-specific acute febrile illness. So, balikan ko lang yung most infections are thought to be asymptomatic. So, syempre, hindi natin alam na nagkaroon pala tayo ng leptospirosis, pero masyado lang tayong healthy, no? So, it doesn't translate to clinical disease. Okay? So 90% of clinical illness present as a non-specific acute febrile illness, while 10% progress to severe, potentially fatal illness with multi-organ dysfunction. So illness may be biphasic, with the patient briefly recovering from mild illness, but then developing more severe illness. So ibig sabihin ng biphasic, pwedeng initially mild, tapos kung hindi naagapan, pwedeng maging severe. Okay? Kaya importante talaga, pag may nararamdaman tayo, kailangan aware tayo sa ating katawan. Okay, so these are the leptospirosis symptoms. So pwedeng may fever, headache, myalgia, typically of the calves and lower back. So very specific din yung myalgia. So myalgia is muscle pains. So, mas nakikita daw yon, very common siya sa calves. So, sa lower leg, sa likod, yung gastrocnemius muscle or lower back. So, parang dito sa may lumbar area sa likod. Okay? Pwede rin daw, we can also see conjunctival suffusion. So, nakikita natin dito yung third picture. On the second row, makikita natin yung conjunctival suffusion. Meron ding nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, cough, and sometimes a skin rash. Okay, so pag may severe symptoms, ito yung mga severe symptoms. So meron jaundice or naninilaw, renal failure, hemorrhage, especially pulmonary. So renal failure can present as electrolyte problems, vomiting, decreasing urine output, or pwede rin nagtiti-color yung urine output nila, yung ihi, nagiging color tsaa. Ito namang hemorrhage, especially pulmonary, ibig sabihin, pwedeng mag-hemoptysis yung patient or umubo ng dugo. Okay? So, the patient can also have aseptic meningitis, cardiac arrhythmias, pulmonary insufficiency or mga shortness of breath, hindi makahinga, difficulty of breathing, and hemodynamic collapse. So, hemodynamic collapse can show as tachycardia or hypotension. So, combined renal and liver failure associated with leptospirosis is referred to as Wales disease. So, kung ang isang patient daw may severe symptom and included both ang renal and liver failure, it is what we call Wales disease na siya. So, severe leptospirosis na din siya. Okay. Sa ano naman, sa pregnancy, it can cause fetal complications, including fetal death or abortion. So, case fatality rate for leptospirosis is approximately 5 to 15% among patients with severe illness. Patients with severe pulmonary hemorrhagic syndrome, case fatality rate can exceed 50%. So, pagka merong involvement ng lungs or may pulmonary hemorrhage, mataas yung fatality rate niya. So, medyo talagang ICU case yan, talagang kailangan gawin na natin lahat ng mga pwede nating gawin to save that particular patient. Pero, even so, even if we do everything and the patient still on pulmonary hemorrhage, mataas yung talaga. May possibility ng death talaga sa patient. Okay, so sa laboratory, paano natin malalaman, So, kunyari, we have the history of all those. We do the following labs. So, antibodies for leptospirosis develop between 3 to 10 days after symptom onset. Negative serologic tests, results from samples collected on the first week, do not rule out disease. So, pwede rin na ibang disease siya. But, so hoping that this patient is already admitted. The serologic testing should be repeated on convalescent sample collected 7 to 14 days after the first. The acute phase of illness, leptospires are present in the blood. So, nasa blood pa lang siya for approximately the first 4 to 6 days of illness. After that, syempre, umikot na yung, nag-circulate na yung leptospires, makikita na siya sa other parts of the body. Okay, so yung leptospires shed intermittently in the urine after approximately the first week of illness onset. So on the first week, kumbaga dumadami pa siya, nagmumultiply pa siya, hindi pa siya na excrete through the urine. But after the first week, na excrete na siya. So makikita na din siya sa urine. So important na lesson to kasi or the information kasi para alam natin kung yung pathology, kung paano nag-i-infect yung leptospirosis or leptospira sa ating katawan. So due to the transience of leptospires in body fluids, a negative PCR test does not rule out leptospirosis. So ibig sabihin ito kasi we can also do a PCR or polymerase chain reaction test if that is available. Pero not necessarily kung negative yon, it does not rule out leptospirosis. Kasi nga, transient lang siya dun sa body fluids. Okay? It is best to submit as many specimen types as possible. Kasi nga, umiikot siya sa buong katawan. So, pwede sa liver, pwede sa ihi, pwede sa blood. Okay? So, recommended specimen based on collection timing on the first week or acute illness, whole blood, and serum. Tapos, convalescent illness, after first week, pwede na rin makita sa serum plus the urine. So ideally, ito yung mga magandang labs to do, no? So ideally, we should do the microscopic agglutination test, which is also called leptomat. This is confirmatory serologic testing. Ito kasi sabi available at CDC. Locally, hindi siya available. So kung sa Manila, alam ko sa PGH available siya. So unfortunately, when we have a high suspicion na merong leptospirosis yung patient, na-order lang siya sa chart pero hindi nagagawa unless talagang may pupunta sa sa PGH. And we just treat the patient clinically. Okay? So PCR hindi siya readily available also. Usually kasi yung PCR ginagamit lang siya sa mga research purposes. Okay, so recommended sample, whole blood in the first week of illness. Urine, at least 1 week after symptom onset is ideal. CSF, cerebrospinal fluid from a patient with signs of meningitis. And ito medyo morbid. So fresh frozen kidney and or liver if available sa deceased patients. Kidney is preferred, pero actually we've never done this naman. Okay, so we just treat patient clinically. Okay, so treatment. Early treatment may decrease the severity and duration of the disease. In patients with high clinical suspicion of leptospirosis, initiating antibiotic treatment as soon as possible without waiting is recommended. So on the part of medical, if we see that the patient has or we highly suspect that the patient has leptospirosis, iti-treat na lang namin. Yun ang mas safe na gawin. Okay, so how do we treat it? For mild leptospirosis, meaning acute febrile illness and various manifestations, but ito, with kaya I put it in red, with stable vital signs, anicteric sclerae, so meaning walang jaundice, with good urine output and no evidence of meningismus or meningeal irritation, sepsis or septic shock, difficulty of breathing, nor jaundice. So ibig sabihin, wala nang mga yan. Can take oral medications, outpatient setting lang yan. Okay? So madali, bigyan ng antibiotic, reseta, uwi, follow up. Okay, now, for those who have moderate to severe, they are admitted. Okay, so any suspected case of leptospirosis presenting with acute febrile illness associated with unstable, so very important, unstable vital signs. Merong paninilaw or jaundice, icteric sclerae, abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea, oliguria or anuria, ibig sabihin less than 500 ml ang ihi per 24 hours or worse, walang ihi, meningismus, meningeal irritation. So, pwede tong may nuchal rigidity or medyo stiff yung neck or may mga signs na nakikita mo yung patient, neurologic, na hindi mo makausap, medyo restless, may mga ibang sinasabi, or patient is in sepsis or septic shock, altered mental states or difficulty of breathing and hemoptysis, so nag-uubo ng dugo. We admit this patient. So moderate to severe. Okay, so this table shows the dosage and antibiotics recommended for leptospirosis. So here, kasi yung iba naman, mga admitted naman yan. So ang important is yung mga oral. So for mild leptospirosis, we give the best antibiotic is doxycycline, 100 mg, BID per orem. So ito po ang treatment. Okay, first line. For moderate to severe leptospirosis, PenG, 1.5 million units, Q6 to Q8 hours. Okay, so pero ito kasi admitted na yan. Okay, next, for mild leptospirosis, yung alternative agent is amoxicillin, 500 mg tablet or capsule, Q6 hours or 1 gram, Q8 hours per orem. Kasi kayang kumain, kayang malunok. We can also give as an alternative agent, azithromycin dehydrate, 1 gram initially, followed by 500 milligrams once a day for 2 more days per ORM. Okay? So, ito din ang pwedeng gawin nating step down. Pag clinically stable and able to tolerate oral medication. So, pwede yan. So, for example, for moderate to severe leptospirosis, yung patient kaya nang mag-take. So, we can shift from PenG to any of these na mga oral tablets. Okay? Or this alternative agents kung hindi pa kaya. Okay, so dosing for antibiotics in adults with renal impairment, kasi syempre, nephrologist tayo. We take care of the kidneys. Ito naman po. So, amoxicillin, it depends the adjustment for renal failure or chronic kidney disease depends on the GFR of the patient. So, GFR meaning estimated glomerular filtration rate. So, ibig sabihin, depende sa kidney function ng patient. So, eto po yun. So, for those patients na may severe renal insufficiency or yung mga dialysis or non-dialysis patient pa na less than 10 ml per minute, eto. So, ito naman yung 10 to 50 ml per minute or 50 to 90. Okay, so the antibiotic to be used is from, ano kasi ito in alphabetical order. So, amoxicillin, the dose for normal renal function is 500 milligram or 1 gram Q8, 500 Q6. So, for doon sa mga kailangan natin pag-ingatan, pwedeng once a day lang yung amoxicillin. Kailangan i-adjust yun. Okay, next. Ang penicillin is 0.5 to 1 gram Q6. So, ito yung mga dapat na adjustment yan. Yung azithromycin, no dose adjustment. So actually dito, yung mga kailangan lang natin maalala is yung mga may adjustment tsaka yung mga no adjustment. So meaning, azithromycin sa mga oral, azithromycin, penicillin. Azithromycin tsaka doxycycline, yung mga oral tablets na walang adjustment. Same lang. Yung iba kasi, yung cefotaxime, ceftriaxone, and PenG, sila yung mga IV meds. Okay. Ceftriaxone, doxy, PenG, no adjustment, along with azithromycin. Okay, so now, dito na tayo sa isa sa mga highlights ng lecture ko, which is prevention. Kasi it's very important for us healthcare workers na alam natin na dapat alam natin na pwede siyang ma-prevent. Kasi it is one of the illnesses na fatal na pwede namang ma-prevent. Diba? Nakakapanghinayang malaman natin may mga bata pa na namatay because of leptospirosis. Kasi ako personally, meron na akong mga patients na naging fatal yung leptospirosis sa kanila because it was not prevented, walang prophylaxis, tsaka late yung consult. Akala, regular na fever lang, tas yung pala after a week, naninilaw na, iba na yung kulay, iba na yung sensorium, iba-iba na yung sinasabi, saka lang dinala sa ospital. So, which is sad. Okay, so, it is very important, the prevention, kasi it is truly a preventable disease. So, kaya po, us in the nephrologists and the DOH, I always give time to give these kinds of lectures kasi it's very important and very timely, lalo na maulan na season na tayo, tapos may marami pang mga pagbabaha. Kaya I'm very excited to give this lecture to give information for everyone. So pre-exposure antibiotic prophylaxis is not routinely recommended. So, hindi kailangan before ma-expose, saka ka lang mag-prophylaxis. No. Pag may exposure, that's the time na yun yung mas recommended. Okay? So, unless na talagang alam mong ma-expose ka, parang inaano mo naman yung sarili mo. So, for those na may exposure lang, dun lang siya recommended. Okay? Hindi siya katulad ng anti-rabies na pre-exposure is recommended. So for leptospirosis, yung may exposure lang yung recommended na magkaroon ng prophylaxis. Okay? So prevention and cure is the same. Yung tablet, yung management, and treatment. So, doxycycline 200 mg once weekly. So, actually, kung na-expose ka, kasi 100 mg ang preparation nito. So, 2 tabs. So, 100 mg, 2 tabs. Kung exposure is, ito kasi, pre-exposure to, but it is not routinely recommended, diba? That's what I said. So, 1 to 2 days before exposure, and continued throughout the period of exposure. So, as I've said, doxycycline, once weekly. Pero usually, hindi naman ito ginagawa. Okay, next. So, number 1, leptospirosis prevention is avoid exposure. So, alam mong pwede kang ma-expose, huwag ka nang magpa-expose. So, paano? Kung wala kang choice, kailangan mo lumusong sa bagha. So, avoid wading, swimming, bathing, swallowing, or submersing head in potentially contaminated freshwater, rivers, or streams, especially after periods of heavy rainfall or flooding. So, avoid contact with floodwater and do not eat food contaminated with floodwater. So, itong i-stress ko lang. Yung avoid swimming, bathing, swallowing. So kasi kung minsan hindi talaga natin ma-avoid yung exposure sa floody waters. So ano mga pwede nating preventive measures? So mag-boots. 'Yon, isang malaking preventive measure yung make sure na before kang pa-expose sa floody water, di mag-boots ka na lang para hindi pumasok yung tubig. So unless na lang na above the knee na yung floody water, no? So as much as possible, you avoid it. Okay, so here, syempre we do not eat food contaminated with flood water. Nakita mo nang na lublob, o di wag mo nang kainin. Madumi na. Okay, so if exposure cannot be avoided, ito, wear appropriate personal protective equipment. So ito nga, rubber boots, waterproof coveralls, clothing, and gloves. Ayan, if you have wound, you cover open wounds with waterproof dressings. Treat unsafe or potentially contaminated drinking water by boiling or chemically treating them. Okay, so boiling, kasi hindi enough na nag-boil na. Dapat we make sure na tama yung pag-boil natin. So when the water starts boiling, usually we should wait na boiling siya 15 to 20 minutes before actually drinking it. So nagbo-boil pa dapat siya ng around 15 to 20 minutes. It's the time na alam natin na clean na yung safe na yung boiled water natin. Okay? Also, keep rodent populations or other animal pets under control. So, dapat meron tayong means na as much as possible, walang rat. So, how do we put that under control? Siyempre, we should maintain cleanliness. Laging malinis, laging magpupunas with alcohol or make sure na malinis yung surroundings natin. Yung mga canned goods, make sure na they are protected, or before you use the canned goods, you wash with soap and water yung top, yung opening, kasi pwedeng nandun din yung contaminated na urine. Okay, so do not eat food that may have been exposed to rodents and possibly contaminated with their urine. Some studies have shown that chemoprophylaxis with doxy might be effective in preventing clinical disease and could be considered for people at high risk and with short-term exposures. Okay, so pharmacology ng doxycycline, kailangan kasi nating alamin, lahat ba pwedeng uminom? So, hindi rin pwede lahat na uminom ng doxycycline. So, ang contraindications niya are the following. So, ito very important. Pregnant patients or lactating mothers. Hindi sila pwedeng uminom kasi teratogenic. Age less than 8 years old kasi pwede siyang mag-cause ng permanent or yellowing of the teeth. or patients na may previous allergic reactions with doxycycline or similar drug which includes demeclocycline, minocycline, or tetracycline. Actually, itong tatlong drugs na to, bihira naman natin binibigay. So, more common ibigay yung doxycycline. So, itong tatlo, contraindication siya. Pag kailangan alamin natin sa history kung possible pregnant ba or nagpapadede ba yung mom, less than 8 years old. Kasi very common to. Pwede talaga makapagpa-yellow. And I've seen adults na nag-yellow yung teeth nila dahil nabigyan sila previously ng doxy. Siyempre, hindi nila alam kung ano yung nabigay. Pero, ay doc, yellow yung teeth ko kasi nabigyan daw ako ng antibiotic nung bata. So, ito yung isa sa mga pwedeng reason. Okay, precaution naman. So, itong kanina was a contraindication, meaning hindi talaga pwedeng ibigay. Iba na lang, alternative drug na lang sila. So, ito naman are precautions. So, we should also know these particular precautions. So, ask a patient or ask a person if he or she has liver or kidney disease, on birth control pills, kasi pwedeng magpalesen ng effectivity yung effectivity sa birth control pills. Yung pala, umiinom ng doxy, tas biglang nabuntis after a few months. Ala. Na-lessen yung effectivity kasi ng birth control pills. Okay, avoid exposure to sunlight or UV rays kasi pwedeng magpa-reaction sa skin. Do not take doxy with iron supplements or antacids within 2 hours before or taking doxycycline kasi absorption of these drugs may be impaired. Okay, so give gaps. O kung pwedeng, wag mo na lang ipatake. Okay, store at room temperature away from moisture and heat. Throw away unused and expired drug. Wag na nating ipatake yan. Okay, so if patients are on oral anticoagulation meds, may require decreasing the dose of anticoagulant. So, ipa-advise na lang sa kanilang mga doktor na nagbigay ng mga ganong klaseng drug na kailangan uminom ng doxycycline. Okay, drug reactions from these drugs may be seen, antacids, minerals, tretinoin, antibiotics, or other tetracyclines. Pwede raw magkaroon ng reaction. So, yung isa pa dito is yung iron supplement nga. Okay, so adverse reactions include allergic reactions. So, patient may have difficulty of breathing, swelling of the face. Pwede rin daw makakita ng fixed drug eruptions. 2, generalized bullous fixed drug reaction. So, these reactions are binibigay lang as precautionary measure or advice lang natin sa patient. Kasi syempre, we can always weigh the benefit of giving a drug versus the risk of taking it. Okay, it can also cause diarrhea, nausea, severe headache, dizziness, or jaundice. But usually, kung isang araw lang naman iti-take to, usually wala naman nangyayari. So, as I've said, anything that we give to the patient, we always should think of the benefit versus the risk that we can give. Okay. So, how to reduce side effects? So, we can advise the patient to take doxycycline with food or after a meal. Kunyari, yung patient masyadong maselan, Dok, madali akong mag-react sa tiyan. Okay, o sige, take mo na lang po with food or after a meal. Tapos, advise them to don't lie down for an hour following doxycycline. Avoid, if possible, taking doxycycline along with other medications that are known to bother the stomach of the patient. Okay, so, and then, kung take doxycycline, BID, kasi yung preparation kasi ng doxycycline is 100 mg capsule. So, pwedeng BID twice a day if the 200 mg is not tolerated. Okay, so, ito lang po, just a picture. Gabay sa leptospirosis. This is from our society. So, para infographic, para mas madaling matandaan, ito po, na number 5, ito yung isa sa mga pinaka-importante. So, kung isang beses lang na-expose, kunyari, nagbaha, na-expose, walang choice. So, ang importante is timing of the preventive measures, yung prophylaxis. So, inumin sa loob ng 24 to 72 hours mula sa time na lumusong sa baha. So, importante po yung prophylaxis kasi time-based siya. So, within 24 to 72 hours upon exposure, dun mo siya pwedeng ibigay. Okay? So, importante po itong timing na to, 24 to 72 hours. Kung lumagpas na dun, di wag na. Wag mo nang i-advise ng prophylaxis. Pwedeng watch out na lang kung mag-develop ng symptoms. Okay? Now, so itong 24 to 72 hours, one dose lang, meaning one day lang ibibigay, 200 milligram, pagka low risk. Okay? Walang sugat, low risk. Pero kung ang patient is moderate risk or meron siyang sugat or nakainom ng tubig baha, we give the doxycycline prophylaxis once a day for 3 to 5 days. Sa loob ng 24 to 72 hours. Okay, so paano to? Kunyari, yung within the day, 24 hours, no? Until tomorrow, we give 100 milligrams, 2 tabs, once a day for 3 to 5 days. So, 3 to 5 days siya iinom. Depende sa laki or sa pagkainom, sa dami ng nainom. Okay? So, up to 72 hours, pwede tayong mag-start ng prophylaxis. Okay? So, madali lang maalala kasi the numbers to remember are 24 to 72 hours lang. Within single dose kung mild at low risk, kung merong sugat, 3 to 5 days natin siya ibibigay. Okay? Now, ito, kung maraming beses lulusong sa baha, kunyari, sobrang baha at hindi pa ma-address, isang linggo na may baha pa rin, then we should give it once a week. Okay? So, doxycycline, 200 milligrams once a week. Every week natin ibibigay until may exposure. Titigil lang natin siya kung wala ng exposure. Okay? So, kunyari, for those na may high-risk na lugar, pwede na, tapos may baha, every week, umuulan, pwede natin ibigay yun ng once a week. Pero syempre, as I've said, kung may sugat, eto yun, 3 to 5 days. Okay? So, parang everyday umiinom ng doxycycline. Okay. Next. So, just another one, kasi as I've said, the highlight of this lecture is the prophylaxis. So, for single exposure, no wounds or cuts or lesions, low risk siya. Doxycycline, 2 cups. Single dose within 24 to 72 hours. Medyo nakakalito lang pag sinabi single dose lang. So, ibig sabihin, isang beses lang iinom ng 2 capsule. Okay? Kasi ang preparation is 100 milligram cap. So, 2 cups, 1 day. Kung merong wound, cuts, or lesions, moderate risk, ang kanilang classification. 3 to 5 days po iinumin within 24 to 72 hours of exposure. And if continuous, high risk sila, 2 capsules once a week until the end of exposure. Okay? So hopefully, mas naalala na natin. Okay, so ito na po ang aking resources. And I think this is the end of my slide. Thank you.
So, ayun po. Thank you so much, Dr. Antonio, for that enlightening presentation. So, at least nalinawan po tayo sa mga rising events natin, lalo na may mga issues tayo sa pagbabaha. At tumataas na talaga ang mga cases natin ng mga nagda-dialysis because of leptospirosis. So, thank you for that very clear po and at least na-clarify natin kung paano mag-take ng doxycycline na hindi lang basta-basta because may baha, iinom tayo. So, ayun. Thank you very much. I think we are now open for the open forums. For our participants, this is your chance to raise questions, clarifications, or even share your brief insights related to the topic discussed. So for an orderly flow po, we'd like to remind everyone of the following. You may utilize the chat box to write down your queries so we can accommodate your answers po. And please keep your questions concise and relevant to the discussions. So meron tayong question dito, Doc. Regarding sa doxycycline daw po, hindi po ba siya 200 milligrams?
Opo, ay hindi siya 200 milligrams. Ang preparation is 100 milligram tapos 2 capsules ang iinumin. So kung tolerated, pwedeng 2 capsules ang iinumin. Siyempre hindi sabay, no? I mean, one at a time. Kung tolerated, one at a time. So 2 capsules in one day. Kung hindi kaya, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening.
So ayun po. I think na-clarify naman po ni Doktora yung question po natin. We also have a question here po, Doc. If the patient is pregnant or with allergies po with the meds, what will be given po aside from doxycycline?
Opo, very good question. Kanina, I presented yung alternative. So sa buntis, pwedeng amoxicillin, pwedeng balikan natin. Ayan, kita nyo ba? So, nandito yung mga alternative meds. So, amoxicillin, yung azithromycin kasi medyo questionable. I would rather, give amoxicillin. Now, kung hindi pa rin, kunyari may reaction siya dyan, i-advise na lang ng IV. Kasi, mas safe yung pwede naman mag-ceftriaxone, pwede naman yung sa buntis.
So, ayan po. Thank you very much.
Usually, yun ang ibibigay namin. Ceftriaxone.
Thank you very much, Doc, for that answer. Any more questions po in the chat box or sa FB Live po natin?
Nakalagay dito si Love Laurel.
Na-answer po na po natin.
Tapos, okay.
So, if there are no more questions po, I think we can proceed with the presentation of our certificate. So, let me just share my...
pa pala ako. May isa pa akong hindi nagbanggit. Kasi habang nandito na rin si Dr. Corpus. So, for those kasi, we are discussing the preventive, yung prophylaxis. Pero isa sa mga pwedeng yung tanungin, Doc, paano kung nabaha ako? Saan ako pupunta? At hihingi ako ng prophylaxis. Diba? So ideally, we can go straight to the barangay health workers. Yung barangay health centers. Opo.
Yes,
meron po sila niyan.
May mga allocated naman po.
Yes, may allocation.
Yes po.
Kung minsan, pag talagang marami, pandemic, hindi naman, sana wag naman. Meron din po kami sa society namin. May mga nakatago kami dyan. Para, syempre, we want to avoid diseases as much as possible. So, kung dito po sa Albay, you can ask sa amin sa kasi I'm also representing BRHMC section of nephrology. Tapos, I'm also a part of our society. Meron sa aming pinadalang mga capsules. Free naman po 'yon pagka just in case na gusto nyong mag-prophylaxis. Okay? Pwede po kayong humingi sa amin. Hanapin niyo po yung mga doktor. Nandun po sila. Usually mahahanap niyo sa dialysis.
Yes po, Doc. Thank you so much, Doc, for that information. Also, we are also continuously allocating po sa mga RHUL LGCs.
Opo.
Doc, meron po tayong isa pa
I think DOH for that kasi syempre yun it's a very important illness.
Meron pa tayo, Doc, na isa pa pong question. So, sabi ni Sir John Sormillion, Doc, if the dialyzer turns yellow, post-HD, is it still advisable to replace it immediately for the next session? I think
Opo,
po
mas maganda
pero
mag-replace na lang. I-discard na po 'yon. Nangyayari po talaga 'yan. I usually advise na discard na.
yes po, Doc. I think sa mga past na sa job ko din po, kami single use din po talaga ang instruction ng mga
Mm-mm.
ng mga nephrologists namin. So, meron din po tayo, Doc, na question from FB Live. Good afternoon, Doc. Pwede po ba siyang inumin pag ang pasyente po ay umiinom ng clopidogrel, ranolazine, at keto analog?
Pwede naman po. Keto analog, baka mayroon na siyang renal insufficiency. So usually ina-adjust pagka less than 10. Yung mga ibang meds ha. Pero usually I don't adjust na pag doxy. Pwede naman yung sa clopidogrel at ibang meds kasi yung anticoagulant hindi talaga anticoagulant yung yung clopidogrel, antiplatelet siya. So what we can advise is to space out the intake ng drug. So kunyari yung clopidogrel advice mo ng morning, tapos yung ibang schedule nung prophylaxis. Pero sa doxycycline lang naman 'yun.
Thank you very much po, Doc. We have another question po. Doc, for HD
Aspirin.
patient with leptospirosis po, pwede po ba sila sa standard dialysis sessions?
Sorry, alin po?
If patients
pwede naman. Standard dialysis sessions. Kung may kidney failure, kung acute kidney injury na nag-lead to acute kidney failure, you mean? Wait lang. HD patient na pala siya.
HD patient daw po.
Pwede naman. Pero kung nag-jaundice, nanilaw yung dialyzer, na yun? Tapon. Unless if the patient needs other modes of renal replacement like hemoperfusion, CRRT, or DPMAS, mas ideal yon. Mas ideal yung CRRT. Yun ang best actually.
Thank you, Doc. What about naman po daw po sa aspirin?
Oo, ganun din. Yung aspirin kasi is the same as an antiplatelet. Yung clopidogrel and aspirin, they are antiplatelets. So, hindi talaga siya quote-unquote anticoagulant. We can space it out. Ibang time.
We also have another question, Doc, here in our meet po. Kung may tuberculosis daw po ang patient, allowed po ba siya ng doxycycline?
Opo, pwede naman. Kasi yung prophylaxis naman is mas ideal siya pag exposed. So kung may exposure tapos nagkataon meron ding TB treatment, pwede pa rin naman basta parang hindi naman nasabi yung anti-cox na pwedeng mag-react. Pero the proper way to yung madaling gagawin diyan is to space out the meds na iniinom. Para ma-lessen ang drug-to-drug interaction.
So I think that concludes our open forum po ata. I think we can proceed with the presentation of the certificate of appreciation. So let me just share my screen po, Doc.
Mag-rest na si Sir Charles.
Doc?
Si Doc, matutulog daw kami 5 AM. Hello?
Ma'am, parang may pahabol tayong question. Ngayon ko lang nabasa. Pwede pa recap hallmark signs of leptospirosis and gold standard na labs.
Ay,
Yung
sige po.
yung hallmark signs is yung mga jaundice, renal failure, pulmonary hemorrhage. Yon. Yung ano naman, tapos conjunctival suffusion, myalgia. Yan. Gold standard, leptomat, culture. Yon. Kaso hindi available. So, clinical diagnosis lang siya. Yung ginagawa natin dito.
Yes, thank you so much, Doc, for that recap po. So at this point, I think we would like to take this opportunity to recognize and express our gratitude to our distinguished resource speaker. On behalf of the Department of Health Bicol Center for Health Development, we present this certificate of appreciation to Dr. Melissa L. Antonio, MD, MMHOA, FCPC, FPSN, for her invaluable service as resource person during the virtual symposium on prevention and control, kidney disease prevention, and leptospirosis prophylaxis update, held on September 18, 2025 via Google Meet. Signed by our OIC Director for Dr. Rosa Maria P. Rimpilio, MD, MCHM, SESE, and is issued this 18th day of September. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Antonio, for generously sharing your time and expertise with us. Your contribution has truly enriched today's learning experience. So I think pwedeng maki-on po ng mga cameras natin.
Thank you po for the invitation.
Thank you po.
Thank you sa mga questions.
May we kindly request po the participants to turn on their cameras for our virtual photo po.
Next time ulit. Doc, next time po ulit.
Thank you
Sure
so much,
po.
Doc. Sir Charles.
National Kidney Month. Lagi na yan. May plan po kasi kami to parang adapt a community. So right now, sa BRHMC, we are looking for the data na marami yung nagkaroon ng leptospirosis, and parang magkakaroon kami ng tawag niyan, gagawin namin community siya para ma-educate yung mga tao regarding sa prevention ng leptospirosis. So I hope we will be coordinating with that project po. Dr. Raymond.
Yes po, Doc.
May message kita, Doc, pagka
Yes,
na-identify na namin yung community.
Surely po,
Correct po,
Doc. So let's take our photo po. So 1, 2, 3, smile.
Command Shift 4.
Another one po. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Thank you!
Wait
Thank you
po,
so
Doc.
much,
Wait,
Doc.
Doc. Wala pa. Salamat po.
Mag-log out na po ako. Bye-bye, everyone.
May next pa po tayo.
My next speaker po na tayo. Apo.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you so much, Doc.
Kuha mo.
Pinicturean ka na lang.
Sagutin mo yung gusto mo maka 100?
Okay, okay.
Alam, bakit
Galing talaga.
So, moving on with our program, we now turn our attention to a very crucial topic in the field of kidney health, which is kidney disease screening and detection. As we all know, early detection is the key to preventing complications and improving the quality of the life of our patients. To share his expertise on this subject, we are honored to have a respected specialist in internal medicine and nephrology with years of experience in the management and prevention of kidney diseases. He is also a medical specialist too in Bicol Regional Hospital and Medical Center. His dedication to patient care and his advocacy for early detection have made a great impact in both clinical practice and community health. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our distinguished resource speaker, Dr. Edgar F. Rimonte Jr. Doc, are you there po?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Doc.
Yeah. Audible naman, no?
Yes po, Doc. Audible naman po.
Okay.
Hello, Doc.
Kita na to, ma'am?
Yes po, Doc. Kita na po.
Okay, sige. So I'll start my presentation. Good afternoon to everyone in attendance. So mostly nurses, right? Okay. So my lecture will be about chronic kidney disease, so in diagnosis, screening, and prevention. So CKD is actually a very personal topic for me kasi I have relatives who also had the same disease and died of CKD, no? So yung dad ko tsaka yung eldest brother. So I always make it a point na if there are opportunities to share the advocacy of CKD awareness, I grab it so that people will learn about this life-threatening condition. Okay. So I'd like to start my presentation with the anatomy of the kidneys and the urinary tract. No, kasi, di ba, often we just discuss about CKD, pero most people don't know yung basics about the kidneys, no? Where the kidneys are located, no? Ano yung functions ng kidneys. So that's also very important to know before we go to the disease entities mismo. So in terms of location, no, so where are the kidneys located? So the kidneys are retroperitoneal in location. So meaning retro, no, at the back of the peritoneal cavity, kaya siya retroperitoneal. So why is this important? No, in terms of symptomatology of kidney diseases, so most patients would present with flank pain or back pain. So sometimes may radiation, no, going down to the groin. So ganun yung presentation, especially in cases of kidney stones. So in terms of weight, our kidneys weigh around 150 grams each. So the size of a clenched fist. And for average Filipinos, the length of the kidney is around 9.6 to 10.6 centimeters, and the width is about 5.2 to 5.3 centimeters. So what are the functions of the kidneys? So very important. Number one is the excretion of metabolic waste products and foreign chemicals, drugs, and hormone metabolites. So kapag sinabi natin na metabolic waste products, so we refer to mga bilirubins, no, urea, creatinine. So these are metabolic waste products. So included also there, no, in terms of, say for example, if you have patients who are intoxicated, no, so drug elimination is also a function of the kidneys. Second, regulation of water and electrolyte balance. So kapag sinabi natin na regulation of water, the kidneys have to maintain a level of homeostasis within the body. So ibig sabihin, the amount of fluid intake should always equal the amount of output. So intake should always be equal to output. So the kidney is the one that regulates that balance. In terms of electrolyte balances, no, so several electrolytes are regulated within the tubules of the kidneys, including your sodium, your potassium, your calcium, and your phosphorus. The number three, also as important, is its function in regulating blood pressure. So a lot of us, no, kapag ang problem is hypertension, the first specialty that comes to mind is cardiology. No, but management of hypertension really is systemic. No, so maraming involved na organs to regulate blood pressure. And the kidneys is the site where autoregulation of blood pressure occurs. So the kidney produces hormones to regulate blood pressure, such as your renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. The next, regulation of acid-base balance. So the kidneys regulate the amount of acids and base that gets excreted in the urine. The next to that is the secretion, metabolism, and excretion of hormones. So as an example, no, alam naman natin yung erythropoietin. So it's the hormone that stimulates the production of your RBCs or red blood cells. So that's why for patients with chronic kidney disease, you can see that they present with some form of anemia. And for patients already on dialysis, we give erythropoietin after the treatment session, just so no, they have enough hormone to stimulate RBC production. And lastly, the kidneys also synthesize glucose from amino acids and other precursors during prolonged fasting, a process we refer to as your gluconeogenesis. So let's focus to the Philippine landscape of chronic kidney disease. So latest information would reveal that around 7 to 13 million Filipinos already has chronic kidney disease and 3 million with advanced CKD. So the current number of Filipinos on hemodialysis is around 40,000. And in the Bicol region itself, around 5,147 dialysis patients are ongoing treatment 2 to 3 times a week. And majority of patients on dialysis have diabetes, around 42%. And what's very alarming also is the high mortality rate due to ESRD, which is already approaching 27%. So focus on the graph on the right side of the screen. You can see here the different causes of kidney failure among Filipino dialysis patients, although this data was in 2016 pa. But as you can see, diabetes at 42%, hypertension 30%, chronic glomerulonephritis 16%, then chronic pyelonephritis around 2%, ADPKD or autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease at 1%, and other causes such as your gouty nephropathy, NSAID nephropathy, herbal nephropathy comprise 9% of the causes of kidney failure among Filipino dialysis patients. So first, let's go to our take-off case. I prepared this case, so let's meet Sarah D. No, she is a 55-year-old female, known hypertensive, and with dyslipidemia for 5 years, referred for increasing serum creatinine level and persistent proteinuria for 3 months. So upon presentation at the clinic, we note that her blood pressure is at 135/82, HbA1c at 6.4%. So controlled naman yung HbA1c, meaning the patient probably doesn't have any diabetes. Her LDL-C level is 110 milligrams per deciliter. So this is elevated because the target LDL-C level is less than 100 or optimal less than 50. So she stands at 5 feet and weighs around 125 pounds with a BMI of 24.4 kilograms per meter squared. her serum creatinine is 1.2 milligrams per deciliter, and urinalysis revealed positive for protein. So she was prescribed an exercise and diet plan and currently on rosuvastatin and losartan. So the question is, does the patient have chronic kidney disease? So just a show of hands, siguro you can react na lang, no, thumbs up if you think the patient has CKD and thumbs down if you don't think that the patient has chronic kidney disease. So tingnan natin. So for us to diagnose the patient with chronic kidney disease, first let's go back to the patient. So let's try to evaluate if the patient has possible risk factors for chronic kidney disease. So yung age ba niya na 55 years old, is that a risk factor for developing CKD? So latest studies show that age 50 and above increases your risk for CKD. So the presence of hypertension and dyslipidemia also increases the risk. No? Yung blood pressure niya, looking at the blood pressure, the BP 135 over 82. For a non-diabetic patient, no, medyo mataas pa yung 135 over 82 as most guidelines would recommend to target a systolic blood pressure of 120 and below for those with elevated creatinine. And looking at the BMI also 24.4. So for Filipino standard, that's overweight already. And the presence of proteinuria. So does this patient have CKD? Let's see. So let's go to the definition of CKD. So we define CKD as abnormalities of kidney structure or function. So structure and function present for more than 3 months with implications for health. So ideal CKD screening should consist of a dual assessment of your EGFR. So your EGFR is your estimated glomerular filtration rate, and UACR or your urine albumin creatinine ratio. Sabi natin kanina, di ba, abnormalities of kidney structure or function. Kapag sinabi natin abnormalities in kidney function, so ano yung test na nire-request natin to check for that? That's your serum creatinine. So we compute for your estimated glomerular filtration rate. So we say that there's already an abnormality in kidney function if your EGFR is less than 60 mL per minute per 1.73 meters squared. So the other bullets there just are suggestions on how to improve the accuracy of EGFR assessment. But here in Albino, we don't have cystatin C, so we just make use of your serum creatinine to compute for your EGFR. So to assess naman kidney structure or kidney damage, first, we request for your urine albumin creatinine ratio to check for albuminuria. And if your UACR is more than or equal to 30 milligrams per grams, that means that your patient has significant protein in the urine. So other laboratories or other parameters that we can do to check for kidney damage is to check for urine sediment abnormalities. So in your urinalysis, you look for casts, so renal tubular epithelial casts, the presence of RBCs, WBCs, but you have to correlate with the clinical scenario. Electrolyte abnormalities, no abnormalities detected by histology. So this is for patients who undergo kidney biopsy. Structural abnormalities detected by imaging. So the most common is the presence of renal parenchymal disease reported in your ultrasound, no, or the presence of small-sized kidneys on ultrasound, and if there's history of kidney transplantation. So take note that the diagnosis of your CKD requires 2 abnormal measurements at least 3 months apart. Kasi kailangan mo ma-establish yung chronicity. So pag sinabi mong chronic, dapat more than 3 months. So for patients who come in for the first time at your clinic, diba, paano mo naman masasabi na chronic na yung problem sa kidney? So you always ask if the patient has had any prior creatinine determination. So 3 months ago, may creatinine na po ba kayo? And if the result is elevated, then you can say that the patient has chronic kidney disease. No? If the EGFR calculated is less than 60, and if there is presence of proteinuria. So again, important to emphasize that your serum creatinine result is not enough to diagnose CKD. So you always have to compute for your estimated glomerular filtration rate, and if available, request for your UACR or urine albumin creatinine ratio. So let's go back to our patient. No? So let's have an exercise to compute for the CKD EPI 2021 EGFR. Now, using the following details, no, gender na female, age 55, creatinine level 1.2. So you can scan the QR code to access the calculator. So let's see kung makukuha yung tamang EGFR. So there's also an app na you can download on your phones, no, yung MD Calc. So nandun yung lahat ng formulas na important, no, not just for nephro, pati BMI, meron naman doon, no, interpretation ng ibang laboratory tests available also. So if we compute for the EGFR using the CKD EPI 2021 calculator using the following data, so we'll get an EGFR value of 53. So putting our patient as stage 3A. So hopefully nakuha niyo pong lahat. So you can screen tap yung QR code and save nyo lang sa phones nyo. So you can also practice computing for the EGFR. So why is it important to compute for the EGFR? No? Number one, of course, is for the staging ng patient. No? Because at different stages, syempre yung advice natin sa patient would differ, the management would also differ. And second, it's also very important in terms of dose adjustment of medications, especially your antibiotics, because there are antibiotics so that you have to adjust the dose for patients with elevated CREA or lower EGFR levels. So going back to the patient, so we requested also for urine albumin creatinine ratio. So the UACR of Sarah was noted to be elevated at 295 milligrams per gram. So sabi natin kanina, so going back to the definition of CKD, UACR known as significant, no, to call this as albuminuria is more than 30 milligrams per gram. So yung sa patient natin, 295 milligrams per gram, so sobrang taas. Okay? So the next step is to stage the patient. So ito, we call this as the heat map. No? So as you can see, yung graph na to, on the vertical axis, you can see the GFR category subdivided into G1, G2, G3A, G3B, G4, and G5. And then sa horizontal axis, you will see your albuminuria categories further subdivided into A1, A2, A3, depending on the level of the albuminuria. So yung colors naman na green, yellow, orange, and red correspond to the risk ng patient for CKD progression. So pag green pa lang siya, low risk. Kapag yellow, moderately increased risk. Kapag orange, high risk. And kapag red, very high risk. So let's try to stage patient Sarah. So sabi natin kanina, diba? So we computed for the EGFR. So the patient's EGFR was 53, right? So dito siya, G3A, no? Kasi yung EGFR level here is 45 to 59. So meaning the patient has mildly to moderately decreased non-GFR. And then, we plot also the level of albuminuria. So yung albuminuria ng patient natin is 295 milligrams per gram. So nasa A2 siya. So we meet, no, kung nasaan yung GFR category and yung albuminuria category to properly stage the patient. So the patient is there. So the proper way of diagnosing this patient is CKD stage na G3A, A2. So in terms of risk stratification, this patient is already high risk for CKD progression. So dapat, no, ma-advise siya about how to delay, no, advice on diet also, and the frequency of monitoring your laboratories. So in terms of signs and symptoms of chronic kidney disease, important to mention that in the initial stages, most patients are asymptomatic, and patients may even lose around 90% of their kidney function and yet do not develop any symptoms. But as kidney function progressively declines, the patient will develop signs and symptoms of renal failure, and this leads to what we call end-stage renal disease. So ito naman yung patients na magre-require na ng hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis or kidney transplantation. So if ever your patients develop symptoms, these are the most common symptoms that they would usually present with. So una, yung madaling mapagod or easy fatigability. Tapos pwede rin magkaroon ng loss of appetite. Edema is very common, especially for diabetic patients. No? Nausea and vomiting if the creatinine and the urea levels are very high. Tapos, decrease in urine output, hindi makatulog. So, bakit hindi makatulog yung patients? That's basically because of the buildup of your waste products in the blood. Tapos, nahirapan huminga if your patients develop fluid overload. So, there's accumulation of fluids in the lungs. Tapos, nagkakaroon ng dugo or protina sa ihi. Nangangati, especially if there's already very elevated levels of phosphorus. And they can even present with problem in sexual function. So, going back to Sarah, sabi niya, Doc, ayoko mag-dialysis. No? Kasi natatakot ako mag-dialysis. So, ano yung advice natin sa kanya? So, can we delay Sarah's CKD progression? Kasi ayaw niyang umabot doon sa point na magda-dialysis siya. So, syempre, since nasa stage 3A pa lang naman siya, no, and A2, there are a lot of recommendations na pwede nating ibigay for Sarah. But delaying CKD progression is not easy because you have to address yung risk factors. Number one, kasi di ba yung kanina nasabi natin, yung age niya, more than 50, presence of hypertension, dyslipidemia, yung overweight niya. So yung mga risk factors, kailangan niyang i-improve. Lifestyle factors, although hindi na-mention kung ano yung work ni Sarah, sedentary ba yung lifestyle niya. So lahat ng yun kailangan din natin i-tackle with the patient so they can improve. Tapos diet is also very important. So later I'll show the recommendations on diet. BP control, so sabi natin kanina, yung BP niya is still not, although hindi naman sobrang taas, but it's not yet at optimal level, so we can improve. Then glycemic control, so sa kanya controlled naman because A1C is less than 7, so hindi naman siya diabetic. Then medications, there are medications we can prescribe to delay CKD progression. And we have to anticipate complications such as anemia, no electrolyte abnormalities, worsening of symptoms such as edema. No? So yun yung mga babantayan natin sa patients. So in terms of lifestyle factors, the advice based from Kidney International, first, promote healthy diet. Tapos second, physical activity. Stop the use of tobacco products and weight management. So bakit important na for patients na nagsismoke, stop nila if meron na silang CKD or even for those na walang CKD, no, important naman talaga na stop yung paninigarilyo because if you quit smoking, you also reduce the risk of associated premature mortality from cardiovascular disease as well as respiratory diseases and cancer. So question, no? So in terms of physical activity naman, so which is not appropriate for a patient with chronic kidney disease? So kasi syempre magtatanong si Sarah, no, ano yung mga pwede kong gawin? Ito ba, recommended ba to na kunyari mag-zumba ko araw-araw sa sa SM? Pwede ba yon? Enough ba yun na physical activity? Mag-jogging ako 2 hours per day pagkagising ko sa umaga. No. So among the following options, no, which is not appropriate for a patient with chronic kidney disease? So is it letter A? So water aerobics for at least 150 minutes per week. Swimming for 5 days a week, 30 minutes per day, jogging for 1 hour daily, or high-intensity workouts every day in a post-MI patient? So the answer there is letter D, no? Mga high-intensity na workouts. So hindi naman kailangan na ganun yung type na activity na gawin ng patients natin. So later we'll see the recommendations. So people with CKD should be advised to undertake moderate intensity physical activity for a cumulative duration of at least 150 minutes per week or to a level compatible with their cardiovascular and physical tolerance. So kahit na yung recommendation is moderate intensity and at least 150 minutes a week, so you make sure na kaya ng patient ninyo. So pwede kasing CKD patient siya pero post-MI naman pala siya. So hindi naman siya pwede ng mga ganong klaseng activity. So you have to tailor fit your prescribed na exercise or physical activity to the profile of the patient. Okay, so next question, no? So ano naman yung mga types of moderate intensity na physical activities? So nandito. So enumerated here are the types of moderate intensity activities, so such as fast walking, cycling, playing basketball, water aerobics, volleyball, hiking, skateboarding, rollerblading, mowing the lawn, and vacuum cleaning. So ito yung mga examples of moderate intensity activities. So in terms of weight management, no, so a BMI of over 25 kilograms per meter squared in adults classified as overweight or obese is already associated with an increased risk of multiple chronic diseases, including development of your CKD. But remember, tayo kasi Filipinos, and we also have a different na BMI categories to classify patients as overweight or obese. So mas mababa kasi. So I think more than 22 overweight na sa Filipino. So ito kasi the recommendation was based on sa Caucasian population kaya siya over 25. So in terms of diet, We also advise people with chronic kidney disease to adopt healthy and diverse diets with higher consumption of plant-based foods compared to animal-based foods and a lower consumption of ultra-processed foods. So recommendation, no higher consumption of your plant-based foods, no lower consumption of your animal-based foods, and lower pa the consumption of your processed food. So mga delata, no, bacon, tapos mga daing, corned beef, sausages, so lahat ng yon. So dapat very minimal ang intake because of the very high sodium content also. So in terms of protein intake, if your patient is not on dialysis, diba, CKD pa lang sila. So we advise the patient to limit the amount of protein in the diet to only 0.8 grams per kilogram body weight per day. So for example, for a 60 kilogram patient, so the recommended daily protein in terms of grams is around 48 lang. So very recently, so meron na kasing in some hospitals, pinapractice ko na rin na i-refer yung patient sa mga dietitian kasi mahirap din for the patients na alamin talaga kung ano yung food na pwede nilang kainin. So what I do is, for hospitals na merong dietitian na nire-refer ko, especially sa ACE, meron doong dietitian that can prescribe the diet for the patient with the recommended protein intake. So just an overview also of the animal proteins na pwede nating ibigay sa patients natin. Pwedeng meat, poultry, fish, seafood, and eggs, and their equivalent protein levels in grams. And there are also your plant substitutes, such as your legumes, your dried beans, your nuts, your seeds, whole grains, cereals, vegetables, and breads, and their corresponding amount of protein in grams. And we usually advocate for the DASH diet. So this is also very true, even just for the management of hypertension, but more so for the management of patients with chronic kidney disease, because your DASH diet promotes low-calorie vegetables, more fruits in the diet, and lean proteins, and would not recommend salt, added sugars, and fats. So this is an example of your DASH diet. So mga servings per week ng nuts, seeds, and legumes, meats, poultry, eggs, and fish. Sweets, very minimal, so less than 5 servings per week. Fats and oils, 2 to 3 servings per day. Fat-free or low-fat dairy. Fruits, 4 to 5 servings per day. Vegetables, 4 to 5 servings per day. And whole grains, 6 to 8 servings per day. So in terms of the salt naman, salt intake for patients with chronic kidney disease, so what is the recommendation? Kapag sinabi natin salt, sodium chloride, so table salt. So the recommended salt intake for patients with chronic kidney disease is less than 5 grams per day. So you have to differentiate then if what's being asked is sodium or sodium chloride. Pero pag sinabi natin salt, that's sodium chloride. So since doon sa question natin, sodium chloride or salt siya, so less than 5 grams. Pero kapag sodium lang, less than 2 grams. So we have to know how much asin is asin. So for blood pressure control, we should target a systolic blood pressure of less than 120 millimeters mercury, because each 20 millimeter mercury increase in the usual systolic blood pressure and 10 millimeter mercury increase in your diastolic blood pressure is associated with an approximate doubling of your cardiovascular risk. So very important to control or target your blood pressure for your patients with CKD. And also as important is glycemic control, so HbA1c recommendations, so less than 7. So tapos na tayo kay Sarah, So sabi natin, so we already gave her appropriate advice on how to delay CKD progression. But Sarah also has a 45-year-old brother who is hypertensive and fears that he may also have chronic kidney disease. So ano yung gagawin natin doon sa kapatid niya? So, of course, what we should do is to screen this patient for presence of chronic kidney disease. So first, meron siyang risk factors for developing CKD. So una doon is yung hypertension, He is also hypertensive. And second, family history of CKD. So si Sarah, who is his sister, di ba, has CKD. So meron siyang two risk factors. So we should screen this patient for chronic kidney disease. So shown here is the latest recommendations on how to screen patients with risk factors for chronic kidney disease and the frequency of the kidney health check. So for patients with diabetes, hypertension, established cardiovascular disease, family history of kidney failure, obesity, smoker, and history of acute kidney injury, they should be screened for CKD. So in terms of the frequency, if your patient has diabetes and hypertension, screening should be done once a year. For those with established cardiovascular disease, family history of kidney failure, obesity, those who are smokers, and with history of acute kidney injury, evaluation can be done every 1 to 2 years. So for patient, para doon sa kapatid ni Sarah, since hypertensive siya, tapos with family history of kidney failure, so we could do kidney health check yearly kung normal yung result. So ano ba yung ginagawa during a kidney health check? So we should be requesting for the following. So una dyan yung blood test, you get your serum creatinine so you can compute for your estimated na glomerular filtration rate. So eGFR, and then classify the patient, stage the patient. Then urine test also. So not enough na urinalysis lang. If available, urine albumin creatinine ratio, and then check for albuminuria, and then stage the patient, then if positive for albuminuria. And don't forget also to check for the blood pressure. So maintain consistently below BP goals. So screening, what do we request for during screening? So serum creatinine, urine albumin creatinine ratio, and then BP checking. So fortunately, Sarah's brother tested negative for chronic kidney disease. So yung eGFR niya is more than 60 and there was no proteinuria on urine albumin creatinine ratio. But knowing he has risk factors for CKD, he still asks, how can I prevent chronic kidney disease? So dito naman papasok na yung prevention of your CKD. So then, we present dun sa kapatid ni Sarah yung 8 golden rules for healthy kidneys. So ito, palagi nyo ito naririnig during World Kidney Day, National Kidney Month. 8 golden rules for healthy kidneys. So number 1, diba? Keep fit and active. So recommendation would be the same, at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week. Then second, keep regular control of your blood sugar level. So si kapatid ni Sarah, hindi naman siya diabetic. So, pero important pa rin to check for the sugar levels. The number 3, monitor your blood pressure. So hypertensive siya. So adjust the dose of medication if not yet within target yung BP level niya. The number 4, eat healthy and keep your weight in check. So same recommendations, more fruits, less animal protein sources, and less processed foods in the diet. The number 5, maintain a healthy fluid intake. So the recommendation, diba, 8 to 10 glasses of water per day. So if wala namang ibang problems, yung kapatid ni Sarah say wala naman siyang heart failure that would limit the amount of fluid na pwede niyang i-take in, then dapat yung advice natin is around 8 to 10 glasses of water per day. And if he is smoking, we advise smoking cessation. Then number 7, very important, kasi nowadays marami ng patients nagkakaroon ng NSAID nephropathy, so over-the-counter na pills or mga pain medications. So those medications like your mefenamic acid or diclofenac, your naproxen, those medications have been shown to also cause CKD. So very important that if not prescribed by the doctor, do not take those medications, even though they are over-the-counter. And number 8, get your kidney function checked if you have one or more of the high-risk factors. So babalikan natin yung risk factors. So diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, family history of kidney failure, obesity, smoker, history of acute kidney injury. And sa ibang studies din, yung origin or yung ethnicity ng patient is also important. Kasi yung risk of CKD also is increased among African, no, mga Aboriginal, and even Asians. So for us Asians, no, palagi naman part naman ng routine lab examination ng mga patient is your serum creatinine. So in summary, so last na pala nung lecture, no? So after prevention, no? So in summary, so we discussed that CKD is a rising global health challenge affecting millions of patients, and that CKD is often asymptomatic until late stages. The CKD can be prevented, and screening high-risk patients for CKD is important. And lastly, early detection is critical to slowing progression and reducing complications. So detect early, act early, and prevent chronic kidney disease. So thank you very much for your attention.
So thank you very much, Dr. Rimonte, for that comprehensive presentation po. Talaga, very interactive po yung presentation ni Doc. Talagang napasagot tayo. At talagang lifestyle-related modifications po talaga dapat punan natin for the screening and detection of chronic kidney diseases. So I think we can now open the open forum for this session. So if you have any points of clarification, questions, queries, you can utilize the chat box again. So meron na po tayo dito, Doc, na point of clarification. So what is the difference daw po, Doc, ng sodium and sodium chloride?
Yes, yung sodium and sodium chloride, di ba? So yung sodium kasi refers to the molecule na sodium itself. Pero yung sodium chloride, it's your table salt. So you have to be very careful, no, dun sa recommendations ninyo if you're referring to just sodium or sodium chloride. Because kapag sodium chloride, NaCl, di ba? So compound na siya. So yung recommendation is less than 5 grams. But for sodium, it's less than 2 grams. So if you refer your patient, kunyari sa dietary service, no, yung sodium, less than 2 grams. But if you put in sodium chloride or table salt, less than 5 grams. So yung nabibili nyo sa palengke, that's sodium chloride or table salt. Okay. So diet recommendation for CKD, the pork, beef, and chicken. So kanina di ba na-discuss natin, so you can also have, so hindi naman kailangan talaga na walang animal protein sources for the patients because animal protein pa rin yung best source of protein for all humans, right? Kahit na meron kang mga alternatives na mga plant-based protein sources. But yung advice is to limit, di ba? So important kasi dito if you compute for the protein requirement of the patient per day. So if your patient is CKD but not on dialysis, the recommendation is 0.8 grams per kilogram per day. So sabi natin kanina, di ba? For a 60 kilogram patient, the recommended protein intake for a day is around 48 grams. So yung pork, beef, and chicken, doon magmamatter, no, kung gaano kadami yung pwede nilang i-take, no, doon sa protein requirement. But generally, no, itong mga pork and beef, mga red meats, so higher yung protein content yan. So that's why yung advice natin for patients, cut down on your red meats, especially beef. So chicken they can have, but they have to be selective also in terms of the part of the chicken, pwede nilang kainin. So pwedeng breast part. In terms of fish naman, so freshwater fish is better compared to the mga sa isda sa dagat because of the sodium content also. And yun, also important to note, no, itong mga pork, beef, no, tapos mga seafood, and yung mga fish na isdang dagat, very high uric acid levels also. So that's a common abnormality in laboratories that we see for patients with CKD. So not just elevated creat, but elevated uric acid also. So myth or fact?
Still have a question, Doc. Myth or fact? Do sodas and instant noodles directly cause chronic disease in individuals with normal EGFR?
Hindi, yan talaga ay yung mga sinasabi lang ng mga matatanda sa Philippines, no? Kaka-soft drinks mo yan, kaka-instant noodles. But examine closely the contents of these food and beverage, di ba? Yung sodium content kasi of your instant noodles is very high. So we know that high sodium content in food also increases your risk, no, or makes you more at risk for CKD. Same din with sodas. Kasi, di ba, if we resort to drinking mga less healthy types of beverages, then that also doesn't help, no, to promote kidney health.
So we still have a question, Doc. From a renal perspective, should you consider giving your family effervescent vitamin C, given its potential to increase the risk of kidney stones?
Mhm. Kasi di ba yung vitamin C, if given at supratherapeutic doses, meaning mga more than 6 grams, that increases your risk for kidney stones because yun nga, yung metabolite of your vitamin C or ascorbic acid is oxalate, so which increases the risk for CKD. Now, if there is an indication to give vitamin C, no, ibibigay. Pero kasi, yung vitamins, no, they are best if they are derived from the diet and not if they are taken in as supplements. Diba? Yung mga tablet forms of your vitamins, diba, na sinasabi natin, dapat as add-on lang yon. If you don't get enough levels of the vitamins from the diet, then you can get or you can take your tablets. So for the question, no, yes, it has potential to increase the risk of kidney stones. Pero if the dose, kung kunyari 500 milligrams lang naman once a day, I think it's fine. Kasi may levels naman or yun nga, yung sinabi ko kanina, supratherapeutic levels ng vitamin C, yun yung nag-increase ng risk for kidney stones.
Well, thank you so much, Doc. Talagang naano natin yung misconception about taking vitamin C po. We also have a question po sa FB Live po natin. So, the patient daw po is taking peroxisam and dexamethasone for a long period of time as prescribed po ng doctor dahil sa rheuma daw po. Pwede daw po ba tong makakos ng kidney disease sa longevity ng pag-take niya, Doc?
Peroxisam, and what's the other one?
Dexamethasone daw po.
Dexa. So yung peroxisam, no, I think if given at the right dose, no, kailangan kasi alam natin kung ilan yung EGFR levels. Kasi I think there has to be an adjustment in the dose doon. No? Pero yung sa steroids itself, hindi naman yan directly nagkukos ng increase in your creatinine levels, especially if indicated. Because even for some patients with CKD, or other patients with kidney problems, say your glomerulonephritis. So we give steroids to just parang initial management also to control yung symptoms or activity of the disease.
We have another question, Doc, here at our Google Meet po. Patient is known hypertensive controlled, obese, and HbA1c normal, but with positive 1 proteinuria, no pedal edema, but normal BUN and KS. Is this starting to progress to CKD? What other screening can he take po?
Yes, so siguro important din dito to ask ano yung age ng patient kasi pwede nating sabihin na normal yung CREA niya, no, pero yung age kasi if you compute the EGFR medyo mababa na pala, so dapat doon careful. So when you also check for the creatinine level, always compute for the EGFR because na-factor in doon yung age ng patient. So pwedeng normal yung CREA pero yung EGFR category niya nasa 3A, 3B na siya or 4. So but going to the question, 1+ na proteinuria, no pedal edema, but normal BUN and CREA. Kapag isolated the proteinuria, first thing to do is to repeat the test. Diba? Just to confirm if there's really presence of proteinuria. And if yes, the next step is to request for urine albumin creatinine ratio. I know it's very hard to find a diagnostic laboratory that has UACR here in the Bicol region. Pero sa Daraga Doctors meron. Sa other centers meron urine protein creatinine ratio, which is a good alternative also. Iba lang yung levels na pina-follow natin. Kasi important to quantify also the level of protein. The problem with dipstick determination for proteinuria, hindi kasi siya ganun ka-accurate. So depende sa collection ng urine, depende sa pag-dip mo ng dipstick. So na-alter din yung level of proteinuria. But yes, because normally you don't see proteinuria sa urinalysis. It's always at the back of your mind. You have to rule out a possible na kidney problem. So ang suggestion ko dito, repeat the test, repeat the urinalysis, and if the proteinuria is still there, request for UACR. Kapag mataas yung protein sa UACR, get an ultrasound.
Thank you, Doc. Talagang may case analysis na tayo dito. So, next, Doc, what is the recommendation daw po for taking herbal supplement for taking care of the kidney?
We don't recommend we don't recommend herbal supplement, no, as part of yung sa kidney health. Kasi kahit tingnan mo doon sa 8 golden rules for kidney health, wala doon mention of taking herbal supplements because nowadays, no, meron na tayong tinatawag na herbal nephropathy. So meaning the kidneys, no, nadadamage sila because of taking in herbal products. So I know, ngayon kasi ang dami na talagang sa TikTok, no, sa Facebook, no, so marami kayong makikita. Pero yung iba, just be very careful kasi AI generated din. So they give false information na those supplements can really take good care of your kidneys. So kami as a society, we don't recommend, no, taking herbal supplements for kidney health.
Yes po, Doc. At least may point of clarification po tayo sa mga participants po natin sa mga RHUs, mga may mga BHWs po kasi tayo, Doc, ng mga participants here. So next,
Yes,
Doc, is can a patient undergoing a hemodialysis increase protein intake compared to before starting dialysis to help survive the rigors of the treatment?
Yes. Actually, the recommendation in terms of protein intake for CKD patients on and not on dialysis are different. So kanina yung na-present ko na 0.8 grams per kilogram per day. So that's just for patients not yet on dialysis. So you might ask, no, kasi di ba ang baba ng protein requirement niya? So saan niya naman kukunin yung ibang lacking na protein requirement niya? So that's where your medications come in. So if you are familiar with keto analogs, no, so those are proteins that don't directly pass through the kidneys. So doon pwedeng kunin yung ibang protein requirement ng patients who are not yet on dialysis. But if the patient is already on dialysis, no, we can increase yung protein intake to as much as 1.7 grams per kilogram per day. So kasi 'di ba yung treatment naman, so that helps in clearing out yung excess na protein intake. So hindi na as limited as when they were not yet on dialysis. So yung difference yun, 0.8 grams per kilogram per day if not yet on dialysis. But if on dialysis already, you can increase to up to 1.7 grams per kilogram per day.
Thank you, Doc. Next question po, does tea and coffee help the kidneys?
Walang direct na evidence, no, to say that those drinks help kidney health in kidney health. So, ang siguro word of caution na lang, no. So kapag may product kayo na iniinom, whether it be tea or coffee, just examine the contents, no? And always look for number one, FDA approved pa siya. Kasi yun, very important, even before you check for the efficacy of the product, you check muna number one is safety. Kasi if it's not safe, then it will not do you any good. So, but as to the question na does tea and coffee help kidney or improve yung kidney health, so walang direct na evidence to say.
So last question natin, Doc, dito po. Is there any milk recommendations po for the elderly patient with CKD?
In terms of milk recommendations, so I think familiar naman po kayo ng maraming mga formula na milk formula na available for CKD patients. So these are especially kumbaga formulated, no, targeting the protein requirement. So hirap lang mag-mention ng brands, no, but there are, no, may mga low protein and high protein na formulations of milk which not just for elderly, no, but any patient with CKD, so they can take that.
So I think, wait lang, Doc. Check na lang po if meron pa tayo sa FB Live. Eto, Doc. Do you recommend patients to take keto analog if they have +1 proteinuria already?
There are better options kasi to give for patients with proteinuria. If it's just an isolated proteinuria, siguro hindi keto analog yung first ko na ibibigay. So there are other options. For example, your ACE inhibitors or ARBs. So these are good medications that can also target proteinuria. Very recently, your SGLT2 inhibitors, if you're familiar with dapagliflozin, empagliflozin, lusogdiflozin, so these medications can also be given to target yung proteinuria. Keto analog, actually, studies naman meron, it can also improve yung proteinuria. Pero I don't think na yun yung best na option, to give for an isolated case ng proteinuria lang.
So, eto may last question, I think si Ma'am Eloisa Jane. Is there a possibility for the DOH to regulate the use of energy drink? I think makaka-answer po nito is yung nutrition po. Kasi sa non-communicable disease po kami. Pero I think that's a good suggestion po talaga. Pwede tayong makapag-collaborate with the FDA. Pero there are no proposed plans pa as of now. Pero thank you for that suggestion po, ma'am. Is there any more questions po? So if there is none, I think we are ready for the presentation of the certificate po. Let me just share my screen. So to present this certification po, we would like this moment to formally recognize the invaluable contribution on behalf of the Department of Health, Bicol Center for Health Development. It is our honor po to present this certificate of appreciation to Dr. Edgar F. Rimonte Jr., MD, FPCP, DPSN, for his dedicated service as resource person during the virtual symposium on prevention and control, kidney disease prevention, and leptospirosis prophylaxis update held on September 18, 2025 via Google Meet. This certificate is given grateful acknowledgement of his time, expertise, commitment to advancing knowledge in kidney health and disease prevention. Signed by our OIC Director for Dr. Rosa Maria B. Rampilio, MD, MCHN, SESE, issued this 18th day of September 2025. Once again po, let us extend our deepest appreciation po to Dr. Edgar Rimonte for his significant contribution to this program po. Thank you so much po, Doc.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's have po a virtual picture po. Virtual hug. Okay, kindly open your cameras po if you can. So ready po. 1, 2, 3, smile. Another one po. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay po. Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you so much po. So,
Thank
to
you.
our participants po, please don't leave the meeting po as we will have our evaluation and closing remarks po. So to close today's symposium, may we once call again Dr. Raymond Martin A. Corpus for his closing remarks.
Yun. Hello? Saan na tayo? Hello po. Nandito pa po ba tayo? Yun. Maraming salamat po, no, sa ating mga attendees po for today's video. Ay, for today's forum po. Sorry.
Thank you
Today's
po.
virtual forum. Maraming salamat po sa pag-attend po. No? So, sa ating mga speakers po, sa ating mga resource persons po, no, kay Dr. Antonio and Dr. Remonte, maraming salamat po for providing us the knowledge, no? The knowledge and what do you call this, the right information, no, on CKD and leptospirosis prophylaxis. So sa mga participants po natin, thank you very much po sa inyo, no, sa matyagang pakikinig, no, kahit alam ko po sa iba po sa inyo medyo unstable po ang ating internet, but still you're there po. No, maraming salamat po ulit. So in behalf po of our regional director, Dr. Rosa Maria Rempilio, maraming salamat po. Pangalagahan po natin ang ating mga bato. Dahil ulitin ko po ulit, dahil sa bagong Pilipinas, ang bawat bato po natin ay napakahalaga. Maraming salamat po. Sensya na po.
So thank you very much, Dr. Corpus. So before leaving po, may we announce that we will have in our cluster po, the non-communicable disease prevention and control will conduct the regional hypertension summit tomorrow po at September 19 at Legazpi City Expo Hall A po. So if you want to join, we invite you earnestly we invite you earnestly to be with us po in this program to celebrate the Hypertension Summit. So next po is, so before leaving po, ito po yung CSS form and post-test. May we kindly remind po everyone to please use their complete name for the issuance of their e-certificates. Thank you po everyone for joining.